So good evening and thank you everyone. Hope all of you had some time off, some time to celebrate all the festivities people had last week and gained a couple of kgs. I definitely did. With all the extra weight and energy, let us get into the session today. I have turned on the recording. If you choose not to be recorded, feel free to turn off your audio video, though we would love for you to be on video, muted, unless and until there is a need for you to talk so that we can minimize the disruption during the session. Today's session is around the competency 4. We've been doing these competency deep dives. We've already done 2. This is the 3rd one. We've left the ethics one for the end to sum it all up. So today we are going to be talking about the competency 4, which is cultivates trust and safety. Why we are doing these competency deep dives is there was a survey that was conducted and a number of you responded that you would like to know, get into the depths of each of these competencies. That's why we are doing this series. All the other sessions are also based on the kinds of suggestions and recommendations you have made. So we will continue doing that. Somewhere during this session, I'll also call out a couple of upcoming sessions and again, catering to what you have requested. With that, let's get started with competency 3, cultivates trust and safety. Before we get into the deep dive, what does trust and what does safety mean to you?
Creating a safe environment.
Safety is creating a safe environment. What is a safe environment for the client?
Where he or she can open up and share our feelings and whatever comes to her mind or his mind.
Is open to share. When you create an environment where the client is open to share, you're creating safety. What is trust then?
In safety, one more thing is that one can open up without being judged.
Yeah, when you don't feel judged and you're opening up without the feeling of judge, that is safety. Lovely. Anything else on safety before we move back to trust?
I think they are inseparable. They are two sides of the same coin.
Talk more, Johnny.
Where there is safety, there is trust, and where there is trust, there is safety. Yeah. And I can't imagine focusing on one without the other. That's what I meant.
Beautifully put, and that's what even I was thinking as to why would ICF have put both the terms as they are. Like, to me also it felt that if I trust somebody, I would feel safe, and I would feel safe only if I trust that person. So as you said, no, they are inseparable. In my mind, they did not exist in isolation. Any ideas why did ICF put both these terms in the definition? And I'm going to show the definition. Slideshow mode. This part is always slightly challenging for me. Yeah, can you all see the definition? So the competency title is Cultivates Trust and Safety. And the definition is partners with the client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains a relationship of mutual respect and trust. So yeah, my question, and I don't have an answer to this. Why would have ICF put both these terms in the statement, in the title of the competency?
I'm just taking a guess here that perhaps the next version of competency, we might see some elimination, because earlier version had another word along with this called intimacy, which has been removed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, maybe if we as a group share this feedback that we were not able to separate out trust and safety, maybe ICF has some feedback on updating the competencies. Lovely. Any other thoughts? Any other comment on the definition? Anything that stands out to you in the definition?
Yeah, my take with the specific question that has arisen is that safety is something that the client feels whereas trust is mutual.
Oh, that's a very interesting aspect. Safety is what the client feels. Yeah, I'm able to agree to that. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Prasad here.
Yes, Prasad.
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
I'm a little outside. Yeah, you see, the interesting word is cultivate. So there is a presupposition that there is some element of safety and trusting before. So for the coach to assess that in a certain way is also important, because not everybody comes to a session with fully primed for safety and trust. So cultivating safety and trust would also mean understanding where the client possibly might be with respect to you, and then cultivating it from there.
Yeah, that's the meaning of the competency. Totally agree, Prasad.
So the cultivating is a word which I think we might need to spend time. What does it mean to cultivate?
What
Where
does
do
it
we
mean
cultivate
to
it from?
cultivate? Lovely.
And where do we
lovely.
cultivate it from?
Yeah.
What is? Are we aware of the where the client is, and how do we cultivate it? Because cultivating requires a different way of addressing it, every client. Yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the term cultivate holds a lot of meaning to you, and I think what we are going to be doing next is also focused on the term about cultivating. How do we cultivate? So I'm excited we are in alignment. Yes, Sunanda.
Yeah, hi. I just some thought that occurred to me is that, one is that safety is both physical as well as emotional safety. It just does not refer to one kind. You have to provide both. And I think trust, another thing would be is that, you trust that and as somebody rightly said, that it both ways, but more from the client's perspective, it's that the belief that the coach wants the best for you. Trust in the well intentions of the coach.
So you're talking trust from a client perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And I also heard in the discussion where trust is a two-way thing. The coach trusting the client that they know where they want to go. They are intelligent enough to make their own choices. That kind of trust, and also the kind of trust that the client has on the coach to
lead them, partner with them. Yeah, and I think the onus of building that trust lies with the coach. It's a mutual thing. They both need to trust each other, but the onus of building that trust and environment is, with the coach.
Heavily dependent. I totally agree. Yeah. For a moment, I did want to debate that it is also the client that is responsible because it's a mutual relationship. I wanted to debate that, but I do agree that even in that mutual relationship, to create an environment where trust and safety exist, a lot of it has to be done.
The way I see it, yes, it is mutual, but the reason I say that it's the onus lies with the coach is because you have to win the trust of the client for them to, feel that they can be open and be candid and be comfortable in sharing, because they are the ones who are sharing. We are not sharing our life stories with them.
Lovely. Yes, Binay.
No, I think I completely agree what Sunanda mentioned. Safety, I'm not talking about who needs to build in, we all are aware, it's the coach who needs to imbibe or create that culture, and as well as the coachee or the participant would, contribute to it. Safety is more like your hindbrain or your primitive brain excites and then creates that if you come from a psychological background. And trust is more like an emotional thing, that I trust a person and I feel safe, right? So the person has to first align, because if you're having the first conversation or first session with your coaching contract, you may not able to acquire the trust and safety at then, but your journey begins from the first session, and then you move on, right? And then eventually you move and you create that trust, that whatever you're trying to say, I understand it. I'm not overlooking it, or I'm not maybe overjudging it, right? And eventually you create. And then the person imbibes that trust and takes insight and then create or feels that he or she is feeling safe to have that conversation. It's a two sides of a same coin, I would say, in terms of relationship. But personally, I may be wrong, or other part, the participant can disagree. For me, the trust comes first, and then eventually the safety as environment brings in, or could be vice versa. So a great example, which I also share in my coaching, is that you feel safe with your father or mother, right? Or you trust because they are parent, but you don't feel safe to talk everything to them, right? So that is one analogy that goes very well, that you trust because they are your partners, you trust because we are your coachee, but you not feel safe to open out everything. So that's my submission.
Lovely. I would want to talk more about what you said. Safety precedes trust. I would want to talk more about that. Let's first hear out Sandeep, and then in the meanwhile, if others could collect thoughts on that statement, how does that sit with you, land with you? Yes, Sandeep.
Yeah, I was just looking from trust point of view.
Can I add? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Being
something happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Sandeep, please continue.
Being honest and empathetic with client while collaborating or building that relationship is what is going to build a trust over a period of time in the session. See, in the first session, client may not trust the coach 100%, but how you carry the session, how honestly you speak, how empathetically you speak with the client, that is the trigger where that trusting relationship start building in. And over a period of time, it happens. And as we progress further, clients start feeling safe physically, emotionally, physically in the sense here virtually these days, but virtually and emotionally, they feel safe and trustworthy. The coach is, and from coach perspective, client also. And that's why maybe it's two sides of the same coin. I look at it from that perspective.
Absolutely. So what we are all saying is safety is what the coach creates from second one in the conversation, but trust might build maybe starting from conversation one, but it builds across multiple conversations and the trust increases along with the safety. Yeah, if that's what we all agree. Any other thoughts, comments before we move?
May I share something?
Yes, please.
Hi. So when we look at trust and safety, essentially what we're saying is about building confidence. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. We heard till you said It is about building confidence.
Yes, it's about, in my view, it's about building confidence in the coachee, in the process, and also in the coach, right? Because when the coachee has confidence, then the coachee starts to share more and more, right? Opens up. So that's one element of trust and safety. And another way of looking at trust and safety is how much the coach trusts himself or herself, and how secure is a coach in the way he would like to, share his thoughts and feelings, and also to be a little adventurous, take a little risk, be light. All that requires the coach to be secure and to trust himself.
Coach to feel safe, the coach to feel trust the process, vice versa.
And yes, and to trust himself or herself.
Yeah.
So, that's another dimension I just thought would be interesting to add to this conversation. Yeah. And confidence is very critical in my view. Are we building confidence in the coach, in the process, in the way the whole session is the journey, coaching journey is evolving. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
In my head, I'm just able to replace the word confidence with trust. Do I trust the process? Do I trust myself that I'll be able to coach the client? I'm able to swap the word confidence with trust in how you're putting it, Prasad. Thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have something to add here. Excellent points. And I think safety and trust. I see this as a continuum, and safety is more with the initial feeling of, as Sunanda rightly said, physical and emotional safety, that they are made comfortable to talk about their inside person to a third party. So that it is the client's comfort that no harm will come to me when I am with this coach in whichever domain, physical, emotional, or whatever, and I can talk to them freely. And on the other end of the continuum, what I see as a trust is more related to confidentiality, that I can share anything with the coach and it does not go out except as provided in the agreement, which if we have done the agreement properly. And the coach has my best interest in the process, and he or she is not beating around the bush, or they don't have an agenda to drive my behavior. And one more point I have on the trust is that the coach does not have any false notions of superiority, or when they give suggestions with permission, they give suggestions which they feel are genuine and validated, not for the sake of giving something. These things fall under the trust end of the continuum, and the other things fall under the safety and everything. It does build up over a period.
Overlap and build, yeah. And safety would mean where the client is able to say, thanks for the suggestion, but it doesn't land well with me, and still their relationship is strong and continues. So beautifully put, PMC. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Bhaktiyar. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Sorry for being late. I've heard some very good comments from friends here. But let me add role modeling really is more of integrity. Whatever you say, you do also. And you show the client, what you are like.
That builds trust is what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. Agree.
If I may add, the challenge that comes while cultivating trust and safety. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Narayan.
If we can move, shift the focus to probably one of the aspects of cultivating trust and safety, we all know we need to cultivate. The challenges that I have seen is that if it is a one-on-one conversations, if it is one-on-one engagement, with mostly with the business owners or CEOs, I have seen that getting done faster, easier. But when it is a corporate engagement with either the HR leader or the reporting manager involved, that becomes a little tricky. So I would like to, prompt the group team to discuss about how do we create trust and safety when there is a third person or the sponsor, the HR leader and CEO. Just to share an experience with one of the CXOs of a very large company. The CEO was very interested to know how it is going and what it is. He was not seized of the probably the way the coaching is seen by us. So I found it very difficult to maintain the trust and safety with the person. The point is that in those circumstances, how do we create?
How do we build? Absolutely, we'll look at that. And I think you bring a very valid point. Two parties building trust and safety is far easier than tri-party or multi-party, because it has that many more dimensions. Yeah, it is a factorial. It is not just one-on-one connection. So absolutely understand the complexity there. Yeah, if you're all okay, can we move?
I just want to add one more thing.
Yes, Sunanda, go ahead. And last comment,
Yes, is the fact that, the trust and safety is built throughout the relationship. At some point, I think I would be happy to, hear from others as to how do you, because we very often start the discussions with our clients saying that this is a safe place, be comfortable, share as much as you are comfortable, sharing, be candid. Now, why should the client take that at face value?
Yeah.
So from the very first session, what is it that we are doing to assure the client that, that we are worthy of that, initial trust is
Absolutely,
something
Sunanda. I'll just expand that definition a little bit, not just what we are doing, but who we are being. Also adds to the element of. Yes, Johnny.
Yes, it's great point, Sunanda. So the point is about who articulates this. If in my view, it's the coachee who will say all that you just said about the coach. So I don't have to say that, it's a safe place, it is trustworthy, you can be yourself. I second or third session onwards, I begin to hear this from my client saying that, oh, I feel very comfortable talking all the things that I want to. So it's more in the realm of the coachee articulating what he or she is feeling, hearing, and sensing from this whole relationship, rather than the coach having to articulate that you can be free, you can be, this is a safe place. I don't think I have to even share that. Thank you.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Sunanda, you have one more.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you, Johnny. But where I was coming from is that, at the very first session, this is how generally the whole contract is, and this is how you contract with the client, right? And while by the next session, hopefully, or by the end of the same session, the client may voice their feelings, right?
I felt safe. True.
Yes, yeah, but that's after we have said and been what we are trying to be, right? That assures the clients that that they can repose that trust in us.
So that's where I think Bhaktiyar's point is very, very relevant about how we are role modeling that behavior,
right?
Without having to articulate, because 93% of what we are telling is told non-verbally. And so that the need for that 7% is eliminated. And that's what I'm hearing from Bhaktiyar as well.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be putting you into room so that you can come back and tell us how are we going to bring it into practice. Are we all ready? Yeah, so I'm showing the screen now. You can see the 6 sub-competencies if you can take a screenshot. In your subgroups, I'll be giving you about 15 minutes. At the end of 10 minutes, I'll nudge you that you just have 5 more minutes, and so that you can start to plan to wrap up. Share good and not so good examples of each of the competency. Discuss what behaviors, attitudes, skills, doing of the coach. Should the coach be adorning to demonstrate that sub-competency? See if you can bring in nuances of how will the coach be and do, how will the coach be and do differently in the first session versus nth session? Or let's also add Narayanan's point, does it change, or how does it change when it is two-party or multi-party? So there are lots of aspects. I'm not sure how much we can cover today, but let's make an attempt. We'll try and talk about whatever the group comes back with. When we come back, let us not spend time on the examples, but rather what our learnings have been. Yeah, in your subgroups, please do share examples that you're able to make meaning of and are able to find out what really, what do you say? How does it translate into examples? Yeah. Any questions before I put you into the breakout rooms?
So we have to discuss all the subcomponents?
No, based on your room number, only that subpoint. Yeah, so I'll be dividing the group into 6 rooms. So based on your room number, only that competency.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. I'm just confirming that every room has at least 2 to 3 people. Yes, I'm going to put you into rooms. All the best. See you in 15 minutes. It's 6:58 by my clock. By 7:13, I'll pull you back. Yeah. Hi, Veena Venkatadri. I just saw you join now. People are coming back from their breakout room discussions. So we'll see what happened in those.
Yeah, sorry, got a little late in the office. Yeah.
Totally understand. And we've been deliberating on the timings a lot. Aren't able to find a time which is, suitable to everyone. How is everyone back?
Room 1 is back. I don't know about the others. But...
We had more people when we split into the
Room 3 is back.
I think everybody is back. 22 are here again. Already.
Yeah, everybody is back. I think we were 20.
Has somebody slipped out of the rooms?
Possible. Totally understand, Sunanda. Feel free to leave whenever you need to. Do what needs to be done to take care of yourself. Okay, with that, can we have room number 1 share what they uncovered?
Nagesh will present.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to share the breakout room 1, what we came up, the outcome. But in between our...
Nagesh, be kind to my old eyes. Please make it bigger.
Bigger. Okay, sorry.
Thank
Is it
you.
okay now?
Yes.
Yep. So in between our team members, whatever you call it as, our fellow coaches would also add their points. So this is the overall thing. So we summarized like this, like the first one is the preparedness, how as a coach, how we prepare. That's called state of the mind. Like coach can be a mirror without any personal biases. So during the conversation in terms of the cultivating the trust, the first one was the subcompetency was seeks to understand the client within their context, which is their identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs. This was our subcompetency. So the coach can be a mirror instead of adding the personal biases. This is one point we added. And being an empathetic, understand the client's background, because every client comes from a different background with a different value system and different belief systems. So this is the state of the mind, the preparedness. How we can achieve this? So using the same words what the client is using during the conversation, instead of using a different terminology, we can use the same words what the client is using, because some kind of emotions are added to the words what the client says during the conversation. And avoiding assumptions, this is a very important point. Sometimes during our conversation we may come up with our own assumptions because of the cognitive brain or many other reasons, but we try to avoid the assumptions. And if there is any assumptions, if we didn't understand, we'll check with the client itself saying that, hey, this is what I am understanding, is it correct? We are reconfirming with the client itself instead of assumption. And we'll try to come up with the more open-ended questions, so that way we can gather more information and we'll get more trust from the client. And understand the unspoken words. It's not that every time the client tells, because whenever they are using the words, there could be some kind of an emotion attached to the word. We need to catch that word. And sometimes client use the same word multiple times during the conversations. So we need to catch the words and understand the feelings. It's not that every time client does tell the same thing upfront, but the emotions which are there behind, we need to understand as a client. So these are the points. Maybe a couple of our fellow coaches could add if I missed anything.
We have, thank you, Nagesh. We have added, we have stated everything, almost everything we have discussed. One way of showing this, the question is that how do we really lead to trust and safety is by your behavior, seeking permissions for even the simplest of the things to do, like even for making notes. If there is sensitive matter, then you really seek permission. And if they are feeling hesitant, then close your pen and keep quiet. So the behavior also, matching behavior with all these things, that is something that I would like to add here. Sorry, we didn't think about it in the room.
Perfect.
Carry on, please.
Yeah, I like the fact that you can understand where the client is, meet them where they are. And I think these virtual sessions are definitely adding a complexity. We are meeting people across geographies, across time zones. What we see is just a portrait and not the whole of the client. And any idea on what nuances, challenges might that bring in terms of building trust?
It would, because the telecommunication, the fidelity is an issue. I'm using a headphone right now. Therefore, the reason is that I would like not to miss any single word or a syllable. It is not always possible. So technological challenges could be there. And people may not be as free on these devices as they are talking person to person. So it's always different. So you can probably bring it up to 80, 80. I'm just throwing a number. You'll never be able to replace a personal meeting. You know, the aggression, the hand gesture, and the way the body responds, that we will miss. That we would miss. Yeah. We need to make it up with maybe a one extra session or maybe a 5 minutes more to state your conclusion and take the reconfirmation. I mean, that's an alternative. I hope that answers.
Oh, yeah.
Can I add something on top of this?
Yes, please.
I was not part of the group, but I think that's well covered is in terms of body language. I've seen many, when we are sitting in face to face, people are more careful on the top portion of the body. Whereas when we are face to face, we can see if they are crossing their legs. Many people tend to, the lower part of the body also shows something. That's one. Second thing is that I have also noticed that, I'm just linking it up. Sometimes physically one can just reach out and just keep the person is in a bit of an emotional mode, put a hand on their hand, for example. Of course, it's if it is culturally permitted, then sometimes that also makes a lot of impact. I've seen that happen when you use it in
In
not as a
person
coaching
versus
sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In a virtual environment, yeah. Virtual setup makes it far more challenging to build trust. Bhaktiar, you have your hands up.
Yes, apart from the physical absence of the two, I think cultural awareness also plays a part, especially if it's cross-cultural coaching, which is happening more and more now.
Yeah.
There, of course, we as coaches need to learn more about cross-cultural coaching. And in addition to that, what I usually do with the local clients, I think will be very helpful with the international clients to, on the first session, devote sufficient time to listen to their life story. That will reveal a whole lot of information which can be used fruitfully by the coach.
Lovely point, Bhaktiar. I remember spending one whole session just talking about myself and the client, just interacting. Eventually, I decided not to charge for the session because I needed to get used to the accent. I was finding it difficult to even follow the accent. So it took me one session to, just get familiar, and then, okay, so now we can get on to coaching. So yeah, totally understand. There can be so many nuances in intercultural. Yes, Johnny.
Yeah, so I just have another perspective, and I agree with all that has been shared. Just another perspective is that, in the face-to-face versus the online, I'm noticing that my focus and concentration is far, far superior on the online medium compared to when I'm in the room with the person, because there are so many other distractions. And when I compare the coaching sessions prior to COVID, where I never did a single session online, today I encourage people to do online, not just for this reason, but for other reasons of commute and all of that. I think it's far, far superior in my experience to be able to focus on the client when I'm on the online medium. This is just purely my experience. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the journey. I've had one of my peers who does a lot of international coaching say he prefers not even only audio conversations, because they are able to focus that much more better. So I've heard that too. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, Shanti, what Johnny also said earlier, also that we transmit a lot of information as a coach also. The coachee is also picking it up. We may be thinking that only we are picking what the coachee is saying. The coachee is also picking our body language as well.
Yeah.
Which is why some coaches do only audio. Because even if we don't want to be saying that we are non-judgmental, we are judging with our body without unconsciously, even when we are trying not to. So I think there are several benefits to all different kind of medium. We just need to know what are the benefits and advantages, disadvantages of each medium, and then
and see what works between a particular client and yourself.
Yeah.
And also, Shanti, apart from listening to the client's story, I think I forgot, we need to tell our story as well to build trust. Of course, we will be brief. With a client, you can spend a whole session, but for yourself, it will be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. This will build trust. And also during this life story session, you can share your vulnerabilities, which will build further trust.
Build that trust element. Lovely, lovely. Can we give a big round of applause for room number 1 and for stirring some lovely conversations? Let's move to room number 2.
Udit, Narayan, would you like to go ahead?
No, Prasad, you can.
Okay. So it was a very interesting session. I think I'll try and sum it up as succinctly as I can. 3 points emerged from the session. One is, of course, the fact that, our clients and coaches are also changing, in the sense that a lot of people who have technical backgrounds, younger people who are coming to the fore. When we talk about respect and identity, it's important to recognize that we need to, as coaches, evolve in terms of how we deal with a very different set of coaches and clients who are coming. That's one point. The second point is, of course, which my team members brought out, was the fact that respect and identity also comes from the fact that we should be careful about not judging people. Okay. It happens. It's very human. But I think most importantly is being comfortable who we are. Okay. It's a very, in the sense that once you're comfortable with who you are and respect who you are, you also, the message you're sending to the client is, I respect you who you are as you are. So it's fine.
Yeah. Irrespective of whether their values, belief system matches that of yours or not.
And without overthinking. I think a lot of this respect and judgment, we tend to overthink a situation. And so and the third point is, of course, I think, especially when you're meeting people who are very different than you, either younger, older, whatever, one of the ways of dissolving, and I use the word dissolving the barriers, is enthusiasm and genuine interest and curiosity in what's going on. It's very difficult to maintain a barrier if the other coach is genuinely interested and enthusiastic and interested in who you are and what's happening. And that doesn't mean you go kumbaya and everything. It's through your voice, through the questions you ask. Everyone can demonstrate enthusiasm in their own way. There is no one way of demonstrating enthusiasm and passion and interest. It's blended in your personality, but people catch that, and that is very, very useful to connect. And curiosity, and and when you're curious and enthusiastic, you are in a way lowering your barriers. You're saying, listen, I don't care for all of this. I'm just interested in who you are. And that, in my way, in my view, is the highest form of respect. Okay, is when you're really interested in someone. Okay.
Yeah.
And the fourth point actually is important, is and I've been listening to some of the other, the comments that came up is with respect. I think we should all be used to and adapt to different kinds of meeting, whether it's virtual, online, or face to face. Right. My personal view is I'm happy with all. Okay. I'm happy with the virtual. I'm fine. If it's face to face, I enjoy that as well. If it's audio, it's fine, because audio, the voice is an instrument, so it's okay. Yeah. So, I mean, if I missed anything, guys in my team, please feel free to share.
Yeah, PK here. Thanks, Prasad. I think the key word in that sub point for trust and safety is respect.
Yeah.
I think respect is not in action, but in being. It's not something that is intellectual. It is something that we are, and the way we are. I think respect is precedes whatever that follows, that is trust, safety, whatever, or more of it or lack of it. And the second point was meeting them where they are and coaching from where they are, without judging where they are. Knowing where they are is one part, but meeting them where they are is the next. So knowing them where they are without being judged, and then meeting them where they are.
Beautifully put, Narayan.
I'd just like to add one thing. When you're curious and when you're meeting them where they are, we don't have to overthink whether we're doing the right thing. Because once you're curious and interested, you'll find that the client will forgive a lot of things. Even if you make a mistake, he'll say, "Yeah, Prasad, actually, that's not it. Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
So it's a conversation that's without any implication.
Yeah.
Right? So that I
and
think
that is mutual respect. I can so relate to it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to worry. The day overthink. Okay. Just go with the flow. That's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments before we move to the next room? Okay. Next room, please.
I'll take it up, and Binay, you can please add on. So our room had that sub-competency of acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, insights, and work in the coaching process. So a couple of conversations that we had were the 3 points I would sort of summarize it in. The first one about acknowledging the unique talents of the client. We talked about how, as an example, that someone is coming from various roles and jobs in the past, and just asking the question in the form of a question, what inspired you in those various roles, right? And therefore connecting the dots for them in their own words. They say that this is what inspired me, and therefore that playing it back to them after that question has been answered is a way of acknowledging their own talents and what drives them. That was one example. The second thing about insights, we talked about how typically towards the latter part of a session, usually after some amount of conversation has happened, and you ask that question that, so what are you understanding, or what's your insight from what we just discussed? And the penny drops typically when the person acknowledges, says it aloud. And we also felt that it has been helpful to repeat that insight back to the client by saying that, okay, what you've just discovered, what you've just recognized as is a key insight, right? It's a powerful insight. So in a way, it's just reinforcing what they've discovered, and that is a way of acknowledging it. And then finally, their work itself is all about, once we have that, I think what was beautifully just mentioned as a genuine curiosity is demonstrated in the work, then that brings out an acknowledgement of the work. I just see there was one other point about the talent and recognition we discussed was that one example of someone, Sunanda had mentioned about, how someone was playing the role of, let's say, a peacemaker, and was not really seeing that as a strength, but was probably seeing it as a limitation or not playing an active role. So bringing out that role was an important relationship building skill was another, bringing in a different perspective, and the person was then able to acknowledge their talent and recognize and start seeing that what they're good at, which otherwise they were missing that. It was like a blind spot for that person, as she said. So yeah, that was also another way of acknowledging talent. Binay, your builds, any?
No, I think you summarized very well, Anuj. Thank you for that. I think the premise arises where, because in today's time, irrespective of culture, most of them, or most of us, are forward marching and self-critical. So what we have achieved so far, we don't acknowledge it, even as we say, keep a pat on the back. So I think when the coach comes and talks about it, and as Anuj mentioned, we have to be very curious about, like a child, that what you have done and it's really happened. I think that is the aha moment for the coachee, that, hey, I have done this. Example, like we discussed, Anuj mentioned about one of his and I shared mine. The person, when we realized that they have really achieved so far good, and there was aha moment there. So I think when you acknowledge your clients or coaches' talents or skills, that also brings out the respect, mutual respect to others, that this person is acknowledging my thought process or my talent. So I think
lovely point, and that ties into the last part of the subcompetence, work in the coaching process. So all of this is happening in that 1 hour of coaching. It's the journey that the client is traversing, and acknowledging that you've been able to identify your talents and your insights are more meaningful to you. So kudos. So lovely.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, just building on what Binay said, is that we discussed that culturally we seem to be more self-critical. We're a striver mentality typically as a country also, and recognition and acknowledgement is not a big thing in our workspace. So in the coaching space, when the client does get acknowledgement, that's a big deal, and it's unique. It's not common. So
yeah, that's why I love being the client. Any other thoughts and comments?
Just wanted to add to what Anuj said. Meaning, culturally, the self-critical nature, it starts right from parenting, school, college, whatever, right? But it also has a domino effect if you're able to create that for the client. Is that once they are able to appreciate their unique talents, they are then able to appreciate that in their team members, in their peers, in their bosses, if you will, right? Yeah. It kind of sets a domino effect of appreciation in the organization. So it's if you're able to break that for the client, then it breaks a certain way of being.
Yeah, I'm able to connect it to the whole system of systemic coaching sessions we've had, that the conversation may be just with a part of the ecosystem, but the impact is much larger. Yeah,
very good. Totally in support of what Binay and Deepak have said, I read an article on leadership where they emphasized that many of the leaders who are competent and who are achievers sometimes develop this syndrome called imposter syndrome. that they don't know how good they are. They doubt their ability and their talents. And
Yeah.
acknowledging their talents then, of course, is very helpful for them.
Thank you, Bhaktiyar.
True setup. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Room number 4. Room number 3.
No, Shanti, another point regarding
Yes,
acknowledging the coach's talents. It, I think, is a double-edged sword. We, of course, want to acknowledge and boost their confidence, but sometimes the coach may go overboard, and in an effort to boost their ego, go overboard with the acknowledgement part. And that, if it appears to the coachee as artificial, then of course we lose trust. That can be a problem.
Absolutely. No. Anything more than required or less than required, both of it can break the trust. Truly, truly acknowledge. Thank you. Yes, room number 4.
I'm the only person left out of room number 4, so I might as well represent what you said. So, what we discussed. Just taking off from what Bhaktiyar was talking about, I think authenticity. So ours was that shows support, empathy, and concern for the client. So one of the topics that came discussed is we could, as coaches, authenticity of sharing is critical. So even when you're acknowledging the fears, feelings, emotions that may be present with the client, or also looking at appreciating the movement action made by the client, it should come from an authentic and genuine space. Because the client will catch it. We assume that the client will, and that's the idea. Once you set up the relationship very good, you perceive, but the client also starts perceiving what you're saying. So, so that's the one thing that we discuss is about authenticity, authentic communication, authentic, not being fake, not being motivating for the sake of motivating, for just listening. One of the topics that also that came up was we discussed was how to demonstrate about empathy and how to show empathy for and this is a point I was making. Krishnan was my partner. So is that empathy is meaning we need to develop the empathy. It's a photo. It's in the being space, and this is how I hold it. How I hold it. So I don't know how I'm looking. For me, empathy is a lot of work on myself as a person. Forget about being a coach. As a person, and the coaching session is just an extension of who I am. So I am not trying to be empathetic in that session. I'm just an empathetic human being who happens to be the session. And in that space, being empathetic, then is just a natural thing for me. Is that if I've, there's a very funny thing I read when I was learning about design thinking and about empathy, is that to walk in your client's shoes, you have to first remove your own shoes. So that how do I remove my judgment, my biases, my filter, my noise in myself, and then in that space of once I'm able to train myself in that space, then it's easier for me. It's just an extension. This is how I hold it, Shanti.
Yeah, I remember Johnny's example. Johnny, you gave that, no? Before entering the house, please remove the shoes and walk in. That was yours, right? Yeah, so true.
So these are the things that we discussed. We haven't discussed anything. Is there anything that I'm missing? One of the things also about authenticity is also about, and also about acknowledging the fears, feelings, emotions, appreciating movement, action taken, supporting them, is the client feel that we are on their side, even when we are perhaps challenging them. Even when they're challenging their some of their basic assumptions about who they are, some of their patterns of being, patterns of behaving. They don't feel that we are questioning them, that we are still on their side, even when we are having difficult conversations with them. This is all we discussed, Shanti.
And how will you make that happen? Even when you are challenging, for them to feel you are on their side.
I think for me, as I said, empathy, authenticity in communication, what Bhaktiyar also to being vulnerable as a coach in the first couple of sessions sets the tone of the relationship. So for example, I've had a business and I've failed in that business, and I can talk about it, how I failed as a business person and what I was going through. The moment I'm able to do that, it's not as it's a peer relationship. It's not a hierarchical relationship. And the moment I'm able to create that vulnerability for myself, it's an invitation for them to be vulnerable. And if you are not being vulnerable, I find it difficult that the relationship will become vulnerable over time. So so I think it even doesn't have to be the first session. There are moments that we could share from our own stories. It's there are other competencies which are there. Where we are not talking about our own story, but it could be about some other people that we know, and showing empathy, showing trust, showing in many facets, right? I think that's my response to you, Shanti. I have not given it a thought.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions before we move to room number 5? Gone. May we have room number 5, please?
I'm requesting Sujata to speak on our behalf.
I don't see her turning her audio on.
Okay. So in our group, we had Anbu, Sujata, and myself, and we were talking about acknowledging and supporting the client's expression of feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, and suggestions. I think what we discussed was about how we have a bias sometimes to be able to sometimes I feel that I've understood the emotion or I've understood the belief, and there was a time when it was imposed onto the client, and sometimes the equation is such that the client very very docilely will accept that imposition. And over the years, I think the refinement is that you just look at what you are observing, not naming it. Without naming it, just observe. So I notice you just shifted your hand, or I noticed a smile, or I even noticed a deep sigh. What's behind this? Right. And I think that is so I'm not going to details of what each of us shared, but I think it's about how can we be supportive in making the client feel free to not only express, but also give it his or her name to that expression. Right? Because excitement is something that we might observe, but he or she may want to give it something else, right? And I think that space belongs to the client and it doesn't belong to the coach, is what the substance of our discussion. I hope I've covered everything. Sujata, if you want to add something, please do. Anbu has left, so this is what we kind of came to our conclusion on that mark of 5.
I love how you put it, as it's the client's decision to call it a particular emotion, a particular feeling, a particular insight. If you name it, then there is already an element of bias in it already, because it is from your perspective, not from their perspective. Yeah. Beautiful. Any other thoughts?
I had a question for Johnny as well. So once you name it, Would you want to expand on that as a coach?
Not a coach. As a coach, I will not expand. I will ask the client, say, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. So the client has the choice to expand, and I'm not necessarily wanting the client to expand. If the client chooses to, I would just leave it at that, and I don't have any further this thing. I just stop there, because it's only as far as the client wants to move. I will accompany the client. I'm not going to say, okay, why don't you go there? Why don't you go here? That's not my choice. It's the client's
very
choice.
Well said, Johnny. Course,
Sorry, Bakhtiar.
We acknowledge, and the client tells us something, an achievement, for example, or an incident at work, and there, of course, we have to be neutral. We can't take sides. We can't say, wow, excellent. Or nor can we say, how could you do that? Or something like that. So one way we could do that, as you have explained, Johnny, we ask them, we ask him or her, how do you feel about it? How did you feel about it at that time? And if the client wants to go further on that incident, then perhaps I would ask, what did you learn from that, which you will use in your future work?
Yeah. Just thinking of a couple of examples. I noticed a sigh. What does that mean? Or I see you. I see you become sad. What does that mean? Such a huge difference. Yeah. It is. It's like, thinking for the client. It's just not okay. Yes, please, Deepak. You have your hand up.
Sorry. The reason I asked is for me sometimes. If just taking Johnny's example of allowing the client to name a particular thing, it can be an emotion, it can be a situation, it can be anything, right? Is for me to get understanding if I and the client mean the same thing, understand the same thing. Especially in India, so many people speak so many languages. We sometimes, when we speak in English, we tend to club it. I'm feeling very sad, right? I'm very sad. But what precisely is happening inside sad? Whereas our vernacular local language, precision in emotional language is probably more precise. Whereas when it is converted to English, sometimes we tend to use block words. And that's where I was coming from, Johnny. Nothing.
Can I respond to you, Deepak?
Yes.
Deepak, the point is where I'm coming from is that it doesn't matter whether I'm in alignment with what the client is. It's the client's journey, period. And if I don't, like I don't know if we heard a case of a coach coaching in English to a Russian. Yes. And the coach did not get the interpreter to interpret Russian into English. I mean, doesn't matter. So similarly, I think to me, what the client is going through in terms of sadness and how it is interpreted in his or her mind is what is important for me, and I don't need to even interpret it in my mind.
I completely agree with John, what you mentioned.
I beg to differ a little here, Johnny. When the coach is stating something and relating a story or telling us how does it feel, then active listening demands.
Tilaga, I think, is on mute. If you can
I'll mute her. Thank you.
Sorry, Bakhtiar. Please continue.
Sorry. If we are listening actively, then we need to understand how the client exactly feels. So asking for further information, I don't think there is any harm in that.
I think further information, definitely we would be asking. If the client says, I'm sad, okay, what does sad mean to you? And exploring that definitely is okay. But saying that, I see you are sad, is like putting words into the client's mind. That's what we're debating that we might not want to do.
No, I meant the earlier. What does sad mean?
What
very
does
easy
sad
for us, especially to say very sad.
Yeah. So I was looking at an emotional wheel where sad itself had 54 kinds of emotions that can be tied to it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was fun. Can we move to the next room? Room number 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ravindra,
May I request
Sandeep,
Bhaktiyar sir, you can take it.
Sandeep, I leave it to you or to Ravindra. I'll add something later on.
Sure. Okay. We were Bhaktiyar, myself, and Ravindra in the session. And our topic was demonstrating openness and transparency as a way to display vulnerability and build trust with the client. I think we started a little bit about this journey, and I was telling that today morning only I had one potential client and a lady of around 25 years old. The point was, I feel openness, I shared was openness and transparency starts right from the exploratory call. It's not starts with the when the session contracting part starts. It starts right from explore, because that is where client is potential client is looking at you, how you are going to coach. So I start what I said was from the openness perspective in advance. I will be writing what are all little do's and don'ts for this exploratory call also. Maybe like be ready 15 minutes before. Keep pen and notebook ready so that they can write their own notes if they want something which I'm telling them. Something like that. A session will be 45 minutes, but may extend 15 minutes. So bringing that transparency as to what is the exploratory session is going to be all about. So I tell them this in advance. Then once the session starts, obviously I give a client the chance to speak up further first, whatever they want, unless they want me to speak first. So if it's a thing for comes on to me, obviously I tell something about me, about who am I, who I coach, what are my credentials, and they can check with that on the profile, my LinkedIn profile. If anything they wants to know further after the session, also just give me a call. I can give the clarity. So I think that sort of a thing brings that openness and the transparency as to who am I in this space and who I coach as well. Once I talk about this particular thing, I try to clarify that, because many a times client is unaware about who is consultant, who is coach, and who is a mentor. And they and typically a client at that age comes with a require looking for a solution provider than a coach. So I have to really set aside the point that what the coaching is going to be all about. If you are looking for a solution, am I going to act as a consultant then? Because I'm not going to provide a solution to you if you are if I'm going to wear a hat of a coach. So I try to cover up and in detail about these particular things. Though about my competency and all these particular things, I cover a little bit in brief only. So I try to tell more about it. Then I give a chance to them to speak, try to understand what they want to have on the table, because it is their agenda. Am I in a position to handle that particular case? And then I try to give the structure as to how it is going to, which tools I'm going to use, or which model I will be able to use. They can do some Google, or I can share some inputs for them to learn. And then I give typically like 72 hours to the potential client to go through all these things. I also advise, I also guide them that check a profile of another maybe one or two coaches, do the evaluation as to who you resonate more with, where you feel the fitment will be more better for you. If you feel me, then you come back to me. I give you 72 hours time unless you need more time. And then if they agree with it, we continue the journey further with the contracting and all these things. So I think somewhere these are the points which I was trying to, I read a couple of posts, but these were the points I feel when we are open, honest, and going ahead with transparency with the potential client at this stage, it helps in build on that. That is what in the early part of the session also I said, the trust is something doesn't start from the first session. It starts building it up, and a trigger point comes when they really get trusted. And as Johnny said earlier, that in this third session or something like that, they really feel trusted and they become more open in sharing what are their inner voice compared to the first session. So I resonate with what Johnny had told that. So this is the way I look at it openness and transparency. Bhakti
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing,
sir
Sandeep.
also added
thank you.
a
Well,
couple
well
of points.
said, Sandeep. Let me just add openness and transparency. I think you have very well said that the client sometimes will not be aware what coaching is like. So I sometimes ask the question, have you been coached before? If no, then do you know what coaching is? If not really, then would you like me to tell you something about coaching? That can be a starting point. And then, as I was saying in our small meeting, that I do make a client agreement, which is different from the contract. If a contract with the company bosses or the HR, then with the client, it's an agreement where I mention what coaching is and how it is different from training and mentoring and so on. And then also I make it clear in the first meeting, you in your profession, in your job, you're the expert. You know a lot more than I do. But however, I have learned about coaching. I've been coaching for so many years and I know about coaching. So that's what I do. But I want to totally help you, follow you, because you are the expert. Wherever you think I can add value, I'll welcome that information. And then, of course, going forward, we all know that we find out what does he or she want from coaching, and how do we take it further into developing a roadmap, etc. So the starting point, I think, asking them whether they know what coaching is all about and how we can add value. What is their motivation to come for coaching?
Yeah, the motivation to come for coaching, that's a powerful question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clarifies a lot of how much they know about coaching too. So
yeah,
totally
sure.
agree.
Yes. Shanti, I would just like to add a couple of points which come to my mind, besides what Sandeep and Bhaktiyar, my partners there, shared. You know, this little while back, I think Deepak also brought this, and I would like to reinforce that as a, trust and safety are emotional commodities. They do not, are not transacted across the table or across the camera. All that what we have discussed now are procedures to put trust and safety in place. They can only add to whatever our being as a coach or being in, and practicing this in our lives is something which will matter to our clients as well as us. Fundamentally, I believe is that trusting a coach or anybody, one has to have trust in himself to bring that trust in others. So it's very important that, being and practicing this as a regular in our lives is most important. Otherwise, it becomes a challenge or it becomes an effort which we'll put it in the coaching.
It's not authentic. Yeah.
Yes, this effort to become authentic, going overboard, all these impediments or whatever thing you call them are something which you will encounter which when you are not natural. So that's one thing which comes, and it's a significant learning for me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I mentioned earlier, Shanti, the imposter syndrome. My belief is that many of us coaches also suffer from that. We need to build more confidence in ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, everyone. We are just top of the hour. It has been such a valuable discussion to me. I thoroughly enjoyed. I am pasting the link to the next session, as I said. This is how can you make LinkedIn work for you as coaches. So please do attend. It's going to be a hands-on session. We can do stuff as Akua is taking us through the session. So I'm looking forward to it. And as I said, I'm looking for volunteers who can partner with me in these sessions. I am tired of thinking of topics and I'm tired of presenting. So would love, and you will be enjoying with more people asking and challenging you with questions and thoughts. So let's see if anyone is willing to volunteer. I'll be very happy to partner with you. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week. So we don't have a long gap. 7th, we are meeting. Take care.
Thank you, Shanti. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Great session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.